Hey guys, I'm really excited for this episode. I'm here with my good friend Daniel, and I actually met Daniel. What was it? I'm going to be 48. I think I was around 25 at a time where I was saying goodbye to a lot of fun things in my life that I did to party and kind of and so meeting Daniel was a really special time. And I think about all the personal development that we did together and knowing each other in that space. And it brings me to the greatest pleasure that I have today to have him on our podcast. What we're going to be diving into is psychedelic integration, prepping for psychedelic integration. And I want to just dive deep into the subject because it's something that I've never done. And I'm really interested to hear about it. It's something that a lot of people are talking about. And I wanted to just peel open and talk behind the scenes of what this actually is like. So can you tell me, Daniel, tell everyone a little about you.
Hello. So good to reconnect.
Hello.
Um, when we met, I was integrating. I didn't know that was the word. But I had been doing, we were coming out of college. I moved back to Philly from Oregon. I had been doing a lot of psychedelics in Oregon and, getting my mind expanded and things like that. And sometimes that was amazing, and sometimes that was a little scary and harrowing. But it revealed to me the need to do a lot of work on myself.
Mm,
Even though I was young, there were things that I knew I didn't want to carry, patterns that I had picked up and traumas that I had endured that I knew I didn't want to carry with me into my adulthood. And there wasn't really psychedelic therapy back then. There was probably like 6 guys doing it in Berkeley, you know. But if you weren't in the Bay Area and you didn't know those guys, you were sort of on your own unless you had like a copy of Be Here Now by Ram Dass. And the other answer was like do yoga and meditation, right?
yeah.
And there's a lot of like yoga teachers, meditation teachers, Zen monks who came into a spiritual life through psychedelics and had a vision of something greater and grounded that in their system through practice. And so when I met you, I was, I got trained to be a yoga teacher. I got trained to be a meditation teacher, and I was studying with some great people who knew that sort of thing. And I was taking those experiences, those expanded states of consciousness from psychedelics, so feelings of love and connection and oneness and the possibility to heal yourself at a deep level, and
Yeah.
trying to ground them into my body um, through practice, right? And through meaningful conversation and, meaningful relationships and being more honest in the way we connected and owning our stuff and being responsible and yada 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 yada. And that's where that's where I found you. You know, that's where I found you. Um, and then I've just been doing it ever since.
Right.
And then about 5 years ago or so, it seemed like more all of my coaching clients, yoga teaching became coaching, and a lot of my coaching clients wanted to talk about psychedelics anyway. Like I kind of have one of those faces. I kind of have one of those faces. Um, so, I'm coaching, artists or like CEOs of tech companies in the Bay Area. I'm living in the Bay then. And psychedelics like keep coming up. People are coming back from Burning Man and wanting to talk about their
Right.
experiences with me. And, more and more, it just started to become the mainstay of my practice.
Wow.
Yeah. To the point where I kind of started an organization that was kind of dedicated to psychedelic support and education.
And so bring me up to speed today with your organization. What is the foundation of it? Are you educating people to take that first step? Bring me up to speed. Pretend I'm like a client coming to you and I say, I really want help understanding and being educated in this area.
Sure. Well, the foundation I would say is community care, right? As I mentioned, one of the things that people recognize when they take psychedelics is that there's a deep interconnectedness between all of us, and that nobody can do it alone, and that we we are where we are because other people cared for us. And if we want to
Right.
get where we're going, we're going to have to get there by caring for others. And people want that kind of meaning and connection in their lives. And so the organizations was based on something called an integration circle,
Mhm.
which is basically a community peer-based space for people to come and talk about their experiences in a judgment-free, stigma-free environment where other people have gone through the same things and understand what you're talking about when it comes to experiences that are very difficult to explain,
Right.
right? They transcend language in a lot of ways. And so when you have a group of people who kind of get the metaphors, get the way you're describing something, and um, you know, um, not it's not everybody you can be like, and I felt like I was going crazy and aliens were coming after me. And people are like, oh yeah, yeah, sure. Me too.
Community where
Um,
people really understood that the verbiage that people were saying and to get support and
uh-huh.
community from that
And also to be able to talk about that without judgment,
without
because
shame.
there's a lot of stigma that goes along with any drug use.
Mhm.
Um, so we started the integration circles, and theirs are going strong. We've been doing integration circles, never asked anybody for a dime in 5 years, you know.
Wow. So do you
People
get donations?
people donate, people donate. It doesn't really pay for itself, but you know, we're doing okay.
Yeah.
It's that's not where we need to make our money. We have events. My private coaching's pretty full. Um, our group classes do pretty well, and it's just happy, and we do it because we need it too.
Yeah.
I run the open groups with Dr. Eric of the Polaris Institute. He's a psychedelic therapist, works with ketamine. Um, Robin and Jean run the women's circles. I was just meeting with a couple of guys, um, one guy in Sweden, one guy in the UK, and one guy in Bulgaria, and they're about to start a UK circle, or a Europe circle
Yeah.
that's earlier in the day, right, for time zones and things like that. So, but if people show up, let me take a breath. I get excited. But if somebody shows up, what ends up happening is um, people show up who have heard about this, and they want to approach it with more care and caution than maybe I did when I was a teenager.
Right.
And they want to approach set and setting appropriately. They want to have a sense of how to interact with the parts of themselves that want healing, and how to negotiate things like setting proper intentions,
Mm,
how to be mindful, how to, somatics is a big word right now. They want to have a holistic experience that includes the soma. And
mm,
so we do all of that to prepare. And then, we work with them. I generally work with people for at least a month before, they find a guide or they sit with their friends or things like that. And then afterwards, helping them make meaning, helping
mm,
them set up action plans for how to um, put new insights into play. Sometimes aftercare has to happen because quite often these experiences are wonderful for people, even if they're hard. But sometimes people kind of get a little knocked around by their own psyche,
yeah,
and
I'm
they
sure. I mean,
need
I
support and
can
care.
only imagine the traumas that get uncovered and
Yeah,
all that personal work that comes up. It's like, I know doing just even like EMDR and um, RTM and stuff that I've done around trauma. It's like you have an overfill of emotions that come up and kind
yeah,
of playing out those scenarios again, but they also go away. And I think that's what people are coming to for is a different kind of experience for them to be revealed.
yes. And sometimes it's what they expect. If you get what I mean, like somebody knows that they have such and such a thing going on, and such and such a thing comes up and reveals itself in new and different ways, and that's exciting. But sometimes people get a little blindsided, and sometimes people even have trouble contextualizing the experience in their life at all. Like they don't know. They're like, why was it like that?
And that's why the integration is so important.
Yeah.
Doing that deep work with somebody else and really being able to help uncover, and just like you said, like move past the trauma
Mm-hmm.
and make
Yeah.
meaning of what it is. What would you say are some of the things that people come to you with, in hope for their experience?
Right. So I'm a coach. I'm not a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to filter out people who need serious mental health care, that need a therapist.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that I say is I do pretty well with people who have the same or less PTSD and depression that I have.
That's a good rule of thumb.
You know, it's not my area. I was trained. When you're trained as a coach, you're sort of trained for um, people who are trying to uncover the barriers to their excellence,
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to people who are just try kind of trying not to die,
Right.
because there are one of the things that we are finding is that psychedelics are really good for suicidality,
Mm-hmm.
but people who have a high amount of suicidality should see a therapist,
Yeah.
who's trained in that. People who are living like lives that are, that they're pretty okay, but they're a little smushed
Well,
down by like late stage capitalism. They're a little smushed down by like the demands of their lives, and they know they're not living their full potential. And they are, a little depressed about it. They are a little bit stressed out about it. And um, they want new tools,
yeah.
right? To create new
Like,
opportunities and possibilities, is where I do really, really well. I seem to also, being a bit neurologically quirky myself, I seem to do pretty well with like the ADHD and autistic crowd,
right.
you know. Um, that seems to work pretty well. But yeah, and then there's also people who just also don't like therapists.
Right.
They don't want to work with a therapist. They don't want to deal with all of that sort of thing. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, very well. I mean, I would say if a person is coming to do typically, I know the pre-prep is about a month. What does somebody typically come to for the integration after in your coaching?
It's at least a month. And to be perfectly honest, like you're my demo. You're like my demographic.
I'm the ideal client.
If you took a bunch of my clients and you smush them together, like it could just as easily be you.
Well,
You know,
that's,
people curious about going deeper.
yeah. And feeling stuck. I mean, I think in life, there's so many things where we get stuck. And
Mhm.
it's like we get stuck, and then we start feeling anxiety, and then we start feeling a lack of self-worth, then we start feeling it. But we're also looking for something else and looking to not take those old stories into our life. And that's what
Yeah.
I think is really interesting. So somebody goes and finds a guide, kind of take me through that process.
Where do they find a guide?
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of,
But that's not for you to know, but
that's not for me to, what is nice is that more and more places in America are becoming decriminalized. Like there's a lot of pushes for um, saying that it's okay for people to explore their consciousness and use natural plants
right.
to do that. So maybe they find a guide in a decriminalized place like Oakland, or um, there's even places in Massachusetts, Northampton, or things like that, or they'll maybe go to a retreat
Yeah.
in Jamaica or the Netherlands or something like that. Or sometimes they just have a trusted friend. I I had one guy who was like, oh yeah, it's like my friend is one of the medical directors for Burning Man, so I figure he can sit with me. It's like, yeah, that that sounds like a good match. And then also sometimes people just will start really small. And this is none of this is medical advice, and I'm not telling any of your listeners what to
Right.
do, but um this is this path isn't like a one and done kind of thing necessarily. And I worry when I see ads on my social media where it says, psychedelic therapy, cure depression instantly forever.
Oh, yeah.
And
You know what?
that's
I get scared whenever anybody says cure forever
mhm,
because I feel like they're making a claim. And it's also our experiences are so individualized based on who
yeah,
we and our own like processes in our brain.
yeah. But like when people take mushrooms, for example, they often come back and they're like, there's a spirit in there. Like there's a wisdom and there's an intelligence, and that might not make any sense to somebody who's never taken mushrooms. But if there's people who are listening and they're like, yeah, yeah, totally. There's like totally like elves in there, and there's a goddess and she's nice, Um, so those relate, and and then maybe their ancestors are there too. So and whether or not that's part of our psyche or the collective unconscious or it's really goddesses and elves, I don't know. But there's a wisdom there that seems to be other. And that means that you're then in a relationship
Right.
with that. And so you might as well take time to develop that relationship. And you don't have to go all the way on the first date.
Mm,
You
baby
can
steps. It's not a
one
race.
can start small,
Marathon.
handshake dose, they call it sometimes, that kind of thing.
And what would you say are some of the outcomes that people experience after?
It's just talking to somebody who um, has a very anxious urgency to their life, that they have to get it all done and they have to get it all now, or they won't be safe
That
and they
sounds
won't be
like me.
lovable,
That
right?
those are my deep stories. My old stories are that I'm not going to be loved if I don't have it all perfect and all together.
Hmm.
And so I overcompensated my whole life, overdoing, over being like, even when you and I knew each other, I was always like the life of the room, just like explosive in personality. And it's like that was all overcompensating for this insecurity I felt about myself.
Yeah. You might be an excellent candidate for psychedelic mushrooms. Um, so and then what we were talking about today, and one of the things that we're trying to help her stay in touch with, because sometimes what people get a taste of something wonderful and something new, and I'll go back to describing it. But the old patterns are so entrenched, and they'll creep back in over time,
Yeah.
right? And so letting people have a chance to continue practicing, feeling a sense of much more openness, like an openness of possibility and in the body, right? As opposed to like if you think about like the way that you describe what you just described, and when I'm describing it, and the people at home can probably feel that, like, I need to get it all done. It has to be perfect. It has to be right, and it has to be right now. Like if you're watching, you can see what happens to my body. Like it's all pulling in, like it's all constricting, it's
Yeah.
all tightening up, like it's defensive and it's anxious and it's ready to fight or flight immediately. And so, what would it be like to easily and gracefully do the things on your list without urgency or anxiousness or the feeling that you weren't good enough?
Without being in
Right.
flight.
Yeah. And so people get a sense of like a more openness, like it just gets out of the body. And the body can kind of like open and expand into a place where you're a connected part of a whole, where everything is happening perfectly in its own time,
Wow.
And so
So
that's
it's
what,
almost like there's like neuroplasticity that's happening, like a rewiring.
yes. So if you look at some of the pictures, if the people type in something like neuroplasticity psilocybin or brain psilocybin brain scan, one of the things that we see is that for the most part, our brains are very cliquish. Like there are parts of our brain just only talk to other parts of our brain, and they're just very hardwired that, and they produce repetitive and unsatisfactory results. And so when we take psilocybin, parts of our brains that don't ordinarily, which makes us effectively smarter and better problem solvers. And so we have people who like people who've like been banging their head against a wall for 20 years and they take psilocybin and then the voice says, the door is 6 inches to your left. And they stop banging their head against the wall, they walk out of the door.
I
You know,
get
that's
it.
all they needed.
It clears the path.
Mm-hmm. It clears, yeah, it clears the patterns, right? The habituated patterns that keep us stuck. You know, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. Most of us don't know how to do a different thing.
That's powerful.
It doesn't even occur to us that a different thing is possible. It's like, this is the way that I always have to do it. And then it's just like, you take psilocybin and it's like, why don't you just say you're sorry?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, and you call the person up. I was like, hey, I'm really sorry about that thing. And they're like, hey, I appreciate you saying that. Like, let's just move on with our lives.
It
And then
takes
you like
away the
don't have to be,
blockages.
and yeah, you don't have to be in a fight for 20 years for over nothing, which is nice.
Yeah. I mean, I think, when I think about people, we stay so stuck out of so many different reasons, whether it's fear or it's old traumas or old stories or patterns. And
Mhm.
I feel like the majority of us want something different. We want something more powerful, more profound, more deep. And we're looking for that. Well, we just don't know where to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's usually just like in the heart. Yeah, this is the part where I get like where I turn into like a hippie, like a psychedelic hippie, when it's like I'm just like, love's the answer. Psst, by the way, love's the answer. And so people will have these descriptions where they're like, because there's an experience of feeling energy, you know, like a really palpable feeling energy in the body. And they're like, oh, it's just like all this electricity and spiraling in my head. And then all of a sudden, like I took a breath and all that energy just dropped into my heart. And there's just this feeling of like light and love and perfection. I was like, oh, that's cool. Just go with that. And people find like that there is an ease and a happiness. Like they can actually be happy regardless of the external circumstances. And then they just kind of continue to point themselves in the way of that, like the happiness, and let that be part of the board. Like it's the happiness is now one of the board members, and it gets a vote into like the decision making, which is cool.
Do you have, in your experience, like, have you actually done this? I mean, I know that you had done them when you were younger, but do you find that you also do them now, um, as your own experience and guided in the kind of integration in your own experience?
Yes. I'm not sure what you're, I'm not, are you asking me if I like to eat mushrooms?
Yes.
Yes, I like to eat mushrooms.
Do you sit with somebody and integrate after, or have you found that you've gotten to a place that you can really integrate on your own?
Well, I mean, I have a team for sure
That's
of people that I entrust my mental health care with, you know, my emotional health with. And um, so yeah, I mean, I'm not above any of that. I mean, I do know there are certain doses where I am comfortable by myself. You know, there's certain doses where, yeah, somebody should be around,
yeah.
you know, if for nothing else than just like we all need support. Like I'm not necessarily afraid I'm going to run into traffic, but like
Right.
it's nice to have somebody to talk to and maybe make me a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as, you know, integrate, like I have a very good body-centered psychotherapist who's, you know, been in practice for decades and decades. And, you know, I have sort of a psychedelic mentor who's like effectively a supervisor. You know how like therapists have a supervisor that they talk about their hard cases with? Like I have a mentor, and I, who's kind of watching out for me professionally, who also has, deep psychedelic knowledge that like if I need to process a thing, and he'll be like, oh yeah, that's good. Go make art about it. Art's a great integration tool, by the way.
Right.
And then I have a rich community. I have an integration circle, and I have just, friends who are walking this path. Whatever you're doing, whoever's listening, I don't care if you're doing, psychedelics or yoga or, some sort of neo tantra. Like you should have a community to help keep you honest, to
Yeah.
bounce ideas off of and keep the conversation going. And, a lot of us learn. That's how we learn. We learn by like hearing ourselves talk sometimes. We
Yeah.
learn by, our friends being like, that sounds a little iffy, man. I want to rethink that. We need that.
So who is this not for? Before we end this episode, I really would love like to hear, who is this not for?
Who is this? Well, it's not for people who don't want to. So we'll start there. If you don't
Yeah.
want to, nobody's pressuring you. I don't care if you do it or not. There are certainly mental health considerations where there are people who there's conventional wisdom about um, people with psychosis or schizophrenia or this thing or that thing. And, if you have serious mental health issues, you should do your research. So I'm not going to make any broad pronouncements, because I know people with bipolar who use successfully, and it really helps them, but not all, doesn't help everybody
Right.
with bipolar. So, if you have mental health issues, you should find somebody who is skilled in that area and talk to them. There are also sometimes medications, that are psychiatric medications or other maybe blood pressure medications that might be contraindicated. Like MDMA can be a little tough on the heart. Ibogaine, is a very intense psychedelic that a good ibogaine practitioner would probably make you have a cardio workup first,
Oh,
because it
wow.
can be tough. It can be tough on the heart. Um, things like, you know, LSD has like a very low body load. LSD doesn't, this is not medical advice. Just
Right.
talk to a professional. LSD seems to be one of the safer ones, medically speaking. Mushrooms are fairly safe. Really, really safe. I mean, mushrooms are safer than alcohol. Like they've done studies. Like the math is that it's safer than alcohol in most cases. But I would definitely, if it's a concern, talk to a medical professional, because I can't give medical advice.
Right.
Um, that kind of thing. And then also is it right for you now? Is a question. Like, are you in the middle of something really extreme and stressful in your life? Probably not the time for your first psychedelic trip. Like, are you moving? Is somebody dying? Is like, is it really important that you keep it together in some ways, because psychedelics are inherently destabilizing, and sometimes they put you in a much better place, but sometimes they really shake you up.
Mhm.
And so,
You got to shake
deciding
that
here,
old stuff out.
but sometimes it's not the right time for that.
Yeah.
Like if you just got to get from point A to point B, like get to point B first and then come on back,
Yeah.
you know? So that kind of thing and then we want to look at why, are you expecting it to do all the work for you? It
Mm,
can do a lot, but sometimes you might want to think about it um, like an electric bicycle. Like you still have to pedal.
yeah. Well, and I think that's where the communities that you're talking about are so important, because it's like you need that kind of support when you're doing something like this, and you need to be guided by somebody like you.
Yeah.
Can you tell everyone where to find you?
tamintegration.com.
And you're on Instagram, exactly. You're on Instagram as well.
Instagram and Twitter. It's all of them. I mean, I'm not on Snapchat or anything, but you know, and I don't pay a lot of attention to TikTok. Like I don't hang out on TikTok, but like
Right,
I'll make a video on Instagram and then I'll stick it on TikTok, you know, a couple of
right.
days later when I remember. But Instagram's a fun place for me to hang out. If you reach out to me on Instagram, I'll probably just ask you to email me. Um, for real. And then, you know, we have these circles every Wednesday night. We have women's circles every Thursday night. I hear they're good. I've never been to one. Um, and we have an online conference coming up April 28th to the 30th called the Integration Jam. Friday's free. And it is looking like 30 probably experts in the field
Wow. Wow.
talking about good psychedelic practice.
That sounds like an amazing. Well, guys, this was an amazing episode. I learned so much. I'm sure you did too. If you're interested in hiring this amazing man, please follow him and reach out to him. Do you want to leave us with anything, or do you feel like we covered it all?
Um, I want everybody to know that I'm very, very proud of you, and I know that you're working really, really hard.
Oh,
And I appreciate it, and I see you, and I don't want you to think that your effort is going to waste. That everything that you're doing to heal and care for yourself, you know, is sending ripples throughout the universe and touching everybody.
that's beautifully said. Guys, you can see how amazing he is. Please follow him. Please support. And he's got an amazing gift for you. So the
I
gift
do.
will be, yes, you put an amazing gift in there.
Nice.
So guys, definitely download it and sign up for it and check out the event. Yes.
Oh, and 10% off the integration jam with coupon code. What's your coupon code?
What's my coupon code?
Yeah.
I don't think we discussed one. Do you want to make up one?
Yeah, just make one up.
Um,
Hustle?
we can do hustle.
Hustle. Yeah. Great. I'll just stick it in the app right now.
So
10% off with coupon code hustle.
if you have any questions, please reach out to him. He'll definitely respond back. And this has been an amazing episode. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to reconnect.
All right. Bye, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you later.